For years, I was the family's mistake, the unwanted whoopsie baby mocked at every dinner. At 16, I vanished, rebuilt my life, and swore never to look back. 6 years later, my parents, who laughed at my existence, came begging for help. I'm Tyler, and by the age of 16, I was already the family mistake, literally. My mom called me that. Repeatedly. Out loud. In front of people. Not even in the comfort of passive-aggressive whispers. Nope. She'd say things like, "This one was a whoopsie baby." Or, let's just say, "He wasn't exactly planned." Meanwhile, just casually pretending I wasn't crumbling on the inside. My older brother Liam? He was the firstborn, the golden retriever of children. Varsity everything, honor roll, handshakes from teachers in public. Mom had a bumper sticker for his high school. Me? I was the footnote. If Liam was the family Christmas tree, I was the burned-out string of lights nobody bothered to untangle. For a while, I thought this was just normal family humor. That everyone got roasted by their parents like they were auditioning for a Comedy Central special. But the jokes never stopped. They got sharper. Meaner. More public. By the time I was 14, my dad would call me the tax write-off when I asked for school supplies. My mom once told a neighbor I was their charity project. I wasn't just the black sheep. I was the dirt under the sheep's hoofs. Then came the infamous dinner. The night that would go down in family legend. My mom was hosting her boss and his wife for some promotion-related schmoozing. She broke out the expensive wine glasses, lit candles like we were reenacting a Pinterest board, and told everyone to be on their best behavior. Which, in our house, translated to Tyler, don't talk. I was instructed to serve hors d'oeuvres and then vanish like a magician's assistant. But you already know I was going to get dragged into the show. Everything was fake smiles and forced laughter until someone brought up how expensive kids are these days. Classic small talk. But my mom, already 2 glasses of red into her Oscar-worthy performance, grinned, swirled her drink, and said the line that blew the whole illusion apart. Birth control is only 99% effective. Tyler's what happens in the 1%. I felt my face go numb. The guests laughed. Loudly. My dad chuckled and added, "Yep, best tax deduction we ever made." Liam looked like he wanted to teleport out of his body. My mom wasn't done. She waved her hand like a game show host presenting a prize and said, Liam was the dream. Tyler was the surprise. I stood there, plate of shrimp skewers in hand, while a room full of adults laughed at my existence. Like I was the punchline to a joke I never agreed to be in. But I didn't storm off. I didn't cry. I calmly placed the tray on the table, excused myself, and walked upstairs like I was going to the bathroom. What I really did was pack a bag. I grabbed clothes, a half-used toothbrush, and $40 I'd been saving for a new game. Liam knocked quietly after 10 minutes. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a spare phone and said, "I've got 120 stashed in my sock drawer. Take it." I looked at him. He looked back. That was our moment. At midnight, while the house slept and the wine bottles lay empty, I slipped out the door. No note. No goodbyes. Just one last glance at the house where I had been the family's favorite joke. I walked 3 miles to a 24-hour diner. Ordered black coffee I couldn't afford. Used the Wi-Fi to find the next bus out of town. And that was it. The start of a new life. One where I didn't have to laugh at my own misery just to make other people comfortable. 6 years later, that same family came knocking on my door. But that's when the real comedy started. Running away felt cinematic for the first 30 minutes. Wind in my face, backpack on, hoodie zipped up like I was in some angsty coming-of-age movie. But reality doesn't wait long to slap the vibe out of you. By the time I got to the 24-hour diner, I was tired, freezing, and riding a mix of adrenaline and dread. That black coffee I couldn't afford? Worst cup I ever drank. But it came with Wi-Fi, and that made it gold. I spent hours scrolling bus schedules, calculating how far $40 and a prepaid burner phone could get me. Spoiler, not very far. I bought a Greyhound ticket 2 cities over, just enough to disappear but not enough to end up on a milk carton. The bus ride was quiet. I stared out the window and kept replaying that dinner scene in my head. The laughter. My mom's wine-soaked punchline. The way not a single adult in that room flinched. I wasn't running from home. I was running from being the family joke, the walking mistake, the uninvited guest in my existence. When I arrived in Cranebridge, never heard of it either, the sky was gray, the streets were cracked, and the people looked like they gave up on dreams 3 jobs ago. Perfect. Nobody would look twice at a kid with a duffel bag and a hoodie. The first night, I crashed at the bus station. Concrete floor. Flickering fluorescent lights. A janitor walked by and gave me a look, but didn't say anything. I guess even he knew I didn't have another option. The next few days were a blur of fast food bathrooms, gas station snacks, and the grim realization that independence is way less fun when you're starving. I got lucky when I stumbled into a diner called Margie's. It was small, smelled like bacon grease and burnt toast, and had a sign that said, "Help wanted." I asked if it was still open. Margie looked at me, saw the desperation, and handed me a mop. You work, you eat. Deal. Deal. I scrubbed floors and cleared plates in exchange for leftover fries and a couch in the break room. Margie never asked for details. I never gave any. We had an unspoken agreement. I kept the place clean, and she let me exist. One night, after I scraped gum off the underside of 4 tables and cleaned a suspiciously sticky booth, Margie sat across from me with 2 grilled cheeses. You got anyone looking for you? She asked. No one that matters, I said. She didn't press. By week 3, I was an unofficial employee. I did early shifts before school-aged kids even thought about waking up. I used the diner's old computer to enroll in online high school courses. I wasn't thriving, but I wasn't drowning either. And that's when I learned the world doesn't care if you're the family mistake. It just cares if you hustle. A month later, I moved into a room above the diner. Margie had been using it for storage, but she gave me a key and said, if you can pay the electric bill, it's yours. I got a second job delivering flyers. Ate enough ramen to develop a loyalty program with sodium. Saved every dollar. And just when I thought I could finally exhale, finally build something of my own, that's when the past came slithering back in. A block number. A voicemail. Tyler. It's your mom. We need to talk. Oh, now you want to talk? The voicemail sat on my burner phone for 3 days before I even listened to it all the way through. Tyler. It's your mom. We need to talk. Just 10 words, but I could hear it: panic, guilt, and a healthy dose of desperation. I deleted it. 2 days later, another one. Then a text: please. It's important. I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because I already knew how the story went. The people who made you feel disposable don't come crawling back unless they've run out of options. And clearly, my family had. But curiosity's a weird thing. Like picking at a scab. Even when you know it's going to bleed. I finally texted back. What do you want? The floodgates opened. Turns out Liam had been in a car accident. Not minor. Not a fender bender. ICU level bad. A shattered leg, busted ribs, and a traumatic brain injury that left him in and out of consciousness. And my parents? They were drowning. Insurance was messy. Paperwork a nightmare. My dad was recovering from surgery himself. And my mom? She had no idea how to handle anything more complicated than a wine bottle. So now I was valuable. Not because I was Tyler, their son, but because I was an adult who had survived on his own, who knew how to file things, ask questions, read forms, make calls. A novelty in their privileged chaos. I waited a full day before replying. Why me? My mom sent back a single sentence. You're the only one who can help us. That line? That one sentence nearly made me throw the phone across the room. The only one? Suddenly, the same people who laughed as I walked out their door wanted my help. My hands. My brain. My time. They wanted the very things they told the world were a joke. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I said, send me the hospital info. An hour later, I was pacing outside the diner, trying to decide if I was losing my mind. Margie came outside, cigarette in hand. She listened without interrupting, then said something that stuck with me. Helping someone doesn't mean you forget what they did. It means you remember who you are. So I went. Not for them. Not for redemption. For Liam. The hospital was cold, sterile, and filled with the kind of beeping machines that make your stomach twist. I walked into the ICU like a ghost from the past. My mom was there, slouched in a chair, face hollow. She looked at me like she saw a mirage. Tyler. I didn't hug her. Didn't cry. Just nodded and said, where's the paperwork? I spent the next 4 hours on the phone with insurance reps, clarifying policy numbers, requesting medical records, correcting a mistake that had my brother listed as uninsured. It was a mess, but I handled it, because that's what I do. Later that night, when the room cleared out and the nurses dimmed the lights, I sat next to Liam. He was hooked up to enough tubes and monitors to look like a sci-fi experiment. I didn't say anything, just sat. Then he opened his eyes, just for a second, enough to see me. He smiled, barely, and croaked out, hey, Ty, knew you'd come. I nearly lost it. Not because I felt needed, but because for the first time in years, someone from that house saw me. The next week was a blur. Paperwork, conversations, updates. I was there. Not every hour, but enough to matter. My parents tiptoed around me like I might vanish again. My mom kept making small talk like we were a normal family. My dad mostly stared at the TV in the waiting room. But they never said sorry. Not once. They thanked me. They praised me. My mom even told a nurse, we're so proud of him. He turned out great. And I wanted to laugh. Because no one turns out great when you're raised to believe your existence is a punchline. You turn out to be resilient. Hardened. A survivor. But fine. Let them pretend. I wasn't there for validation. I was there for Liam. And when he finally stabilized, when the worst had passed and my usefulness had run its course. They asked me to come home. Home. Like it was a place I could return to. I looked them in the eyes, both of them, and said, "You called me the family mistake. I'm not coming back to be your miracle." Then I walked out. Again. But this time, it wasn't running. It was freedom for real. Update. It had been 2 months since I walked out of that hospital room. It's been 2 months since I made it clear that I wasn't going to be the emotional crutch for the same people who cracked jokes about my existence for 16 straight years. And for those 2 months? Silence. Glorious, uninterrupted silence. No texts. No calls. No tearful voicemails or passive-aggressive Facebook messages. I figured they'd finally understood. That my note was permanent. That I had boundaries now. But then came the letter. A real one. Paper envelope, handwritten address, even a stamp. I almost didn't open it. I stood in my room holding it like it might explode. The return address was my parents'. Inside were 4 pages of my mother's handwriting, and the smell of her perfume like some weird emotional time machine. The letter started with what she probably thought was a heartwarming opener. "I know I've made mistakes." Mistakes. Singular. Like she'd left the oven on or forgotten to RSVP to a wedding. Not like she made a sport out of emotionally bench-pressing her youngest child in front of strangers for cheap laughs. She talked about Liam's recovery. He was starting to walk again. How was his speech therapy going well? Then she launched into how much she missed me. How empty the house felt. Every time she saw something I used to love, a favorite mug, a hoodie I left behind, she cried. I bet. But then she pivoted. The letter suddenly became less about her guilt and more about her version of events. She said she only joked about me because she thought I was strong enough to handle it. That I always seemed so independent. That I never needed much. That I wasn't as delicate as Liam. Let me translate. I didn't cry in public, so she assumed I couldn't break. She went on to say that they were just trying their best and had no idea how much damage they'd done. That if they had known, they would have stopped. Which is wild, considering I did tell them. Multiple times. Through silence, withdrawal, and disappearing entirely. But I guess unless I screamed it into a microphone, they didn't hear it. The last page was an invitation, not literal, but emotional. She said she wanted to start over. That I could come home. That they were ready to listen now. Ready to listen now. That line made me laugh out loud. I sat there, holding the letter, just shaking my head. So I wrote back. Not out of obligation. Not out of forgiveness. But because, for once, I had the words, and the power, and the chance to say what needed to be said. My letter was short. Barely 1 page. I told her I appreciated the apology, late as it was. I told her I was glad Liam was getting better, truly. But I also told her that an apology isn't a reset button. It's not a magic spell that makes pain vanish. That healing takes more than a letter drenched in nostalgia and perfume. And I ended with this. I don't need a place to come home to anymore. I built my own. And in mine, I don't have to laugh at myself to feel loved. I dropped the letter in the mailbox that evening. No fanfare. No big cinematic music moment. Just me, standing under a street lamp, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. But I wasn't done. Because right when I thought the story was over, when I thought I had finally closed the book on my family's chaos for good, Liam showed up. Not a call. Not a text. He showed up. At the diner. And he had something to say. It was a slow Tuesday evening at the diner. The kind where time moves like molasses and the jukebox plays the same sad song on a loop. I was halfway through restocking the ketchup bottles when I saw him. Liam. Standing outside the window, hands in his jacket pockets, looking like he had aged a decade since I saw him in the ICU. He looked hesitant. Like he wasn't sure if I'd even open the door. Part of me wanted to ignore him. Part of me wanted to walk right past and pretend the past 6 years hadn't happened. But I didn't. I opened the door. He stepped in like a ghost afraid to haunt the wrong house. Hey, Ty. That was all he said. Like we were just 2 brothers catching up after a long vacation instead of 6 years and a lifetime of pain later. I gestured to the booth in the back, the unofficial break spot, and we sat across from each other in silence for a while. The clink of coffee cups and the hum of the fryer filled the gaps between us. Finally, he spoke. I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but I needed to see you. I stayed quiet. Let him say what he needed. He stared at the table like it held all the answers. I should have said something that night you left. I should have stopped them. Or followed you. Or something. He looked up then, and his eyes were red. Not the theatrical kind, the real kind. Raw. They made me the golden boy, and I let them. I liked being the favorite. I liked that it was easy. I didn't realize how much they were crushing you to make room for me. He swallowed hard. But I saw it, Ty. I saw it all. The jokes. The way they ignored you. The way you faded out of every room before anyone even noticed. And I didn't say a damn word. I let it happen. I let you happen alone. I didn't know what to say. For a long time, I told myself Liam was just like them. He laughed too, that he was complicit. But hearing this now, it cracked something in me. A bitterness I didn't even realize I'd been clutching like a trophy. He kept going. I read your letter. Mom showed me. I raised an eyebrow. She was upset. Thought it was cold. I told her it was perfect. Honest. You don't owe us warmth, Ty. Not after how cold they were to you. He reached into his coat and slid a folded paper across the table. That's my number. Real number. Not theirs. Not the house. Just me. You don't have to use it. But if you ever want to talk, I'll answer. Even if it's just to yell at me. Or tell me to screw off. I'll take it. He stood up. Didn't try to hug me. Didn't ask me to come visit. Just said, I'm proud of you. Even if I never said it. I always was. And then he left. I sat there for a while, staring at the paper in front of me. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. But I felt something lift. Not closure. But maybe a start. And that was enough for now. I didn't call Liam. Not that night. Not the next day. I just kept the paper folded up in my wallet like a relic from a museum. Something that once held power, but no longer ruled my life. Part of me was terrified. Not of him, but of what it would mean if I opened that door again. If I let any of them back in. But healing isn't linear, and some scars itch before they fade. It took 2 weeks before I finally dialed the number. I had no plan. No speech prepared. I just sat in my room staring at the wall, thumb hovering over the screen like it was a detonator. When he picked up, he didn't say hello. He just said, hey. And that cracked me wide open. We talked about our childhood. What it meant to grow up in a house where love came with a laugh track and pain was ignored until it became normal. Liam didn't try to defend them. He didn't make excuses. He didn't ask me to forgive. He just listened. That call didn't fix everything. But it started something. A slow repair. Like turning over soil after a long winter. We kept in touch. Text at first. Then the occasional phone call. And one Sunday, Liam drove 2 hours just to have coffee with me at the diner. He didn't come with apologies. He came with presents. And sometimes, that's enough. Meanwhile, I kept doing what I'd been doing, building a life. I moved out of the room above the diner and into a tiny studio apartment with an actual window that faced something other than a dumpster. I started community college part-time. Studying psychology, believe it or not. Seemed fitting. Margie, the diner's owner, hugged me the day I moved out, called me her hard-headed second son, and slipped a $100 bill into my backpack when I wasn't looking. I cried like a child in the stairwell that night. The good kind of cry, the kind that scrapes the leftover sadness out of your bones. My parents didn't try again. At least, not directly. My mom sent me a Christmas card. 2 months late, no return address. Just 3 words inside. We miss you. I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because I realized something huge. I don't need them to finish my story. For so long, I thought closure would come from hearing them say sorry. I needed some dramatic apology, a tear-filled reunion, or a full-circle moment to move on. But closure isn't always a door slamming shut. Sometimes, it's realizing you walked through it a long time ago and never looked back. And peace? It's not found in revenge or guilt trips or seeing your parents suffer from their own choices. It's waking up and choosing not to carry the weight they try to hand you anymore. So here's where I'm at now. I still have scars. I still have moments where I flinch at compliments or overthink a simple "how are you?" But I also have a job I like, friends who see me, and a version of family that I built on respect, not blood. Liam's part of that now. Slowly, carefully. No expectations. No pressure. Just 2 adults trying to build something better out of the wreckage we both survived. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day I'll meet my parents again. Maybe I won't. But either way, I'm not the family mistake. I'm the one who got out and made it. And if you've ever been made to feel like the extra, the afterthought, the unplanned inconvenience in your own life story, hear me when I say this. You are not a mistake. I used to believe I was. I wore it like a label, laughed at it like a joke, carried it like a shadow. But I know better now. And I want you to know better, too. You're not broken. You're just early in your story. Maybe your chapter 1 was chaos, or cruelty, or neglect. But you get to decide what the rest looks like. I'm not just free. I'm building something better. So, if you've been through something like this, I want to hear from you. What would you do in my shoes? Would you ever let someone like that back into your life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're still somewhere in the middle of your hard chapter, hang on. You're not alone. You're just getting started.